Shavua Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Eruvin. We are up to Perik Aleph Mishnah Hey. Today's Mishnah should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Tzvetlana Ranbai ben Eliyahu ben Burcha Israel of Menuchatam Began Eden Amen. In Mishnah Gimel, the Mishnah taught that the crossbeam must be wide enough for an ariach, a type of brick. It's half as wide as a levena, which therefore an ariach is a brick 1.5 tefachim wide by 3 tefachim long. The Mishnah brought a machloket, the dispute, the Mishnah Daled between Rabbi Yehuda and Tana Kama, whether the crossbeam must be strong enough to support an ariach. Rabbi Yehuda said, if the crossbeam is wide enough to support an ariach, it is effective, even if it's not strong enough to support one. Today's Mishnah, Mishnah Hey, Rabbi Yehuda will illustrate his opinion that the crossbeam need not be strong enough to support an ariach. The Rav does say, Velet ilchata kevateh, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda from this Mishnah. Haita shel kash or shel kanim, if the crossbeam was made of straw or reeds and is therefore unable to support an ariach, we view it as if it were made of metal, which can support an ariach. Again, these laws follow Rabbi Yehuda, who does not require that the crossbeam be able to hold an ariach. Like we said, according to the Chachamim, the crossbeam must be capable of supporting an ariach in its current state. Similarly, if the crossbeam is bent such that an ariach would fall off of it, we view it as though it were straight. If it is round, meaning like a pole, and therefore an ariach would roll off of it, we view it as though it were square with a flat surface. Now, in order for any beam to be effective, its width must be at least 1 tefach, like we taught in Mishnah 3. The Mishnah explains how to calculate the width, the diameter of a round beam based on its circumference. Anything that has a circumference of 3 tefachim has a diameter of 1 tefach. Therefore, the circumference of a round beam must be at least 3 tefachim, so that its width, its diameter will meet the required minimum. And the commentary, the Rambam explains in his commentary that the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter is somewhat more than 3. It's closer to 3 1/7. However, the exact number is impossible to calculate with absolute accuracy. So since the number can only be approximated, the sages ruled that it should be rounded down to 3 with respect to halachic matters. Again, this is how the art school explains it in the note to this Mishnah. And that is in Rabotai Mishnah Hey. Mishnah Vav now discusses the other adjustment that can be made to an alley. Now that we dealt with the laws of a crossbeam, this Mishnah discusses a pole at the side of its entrance. Lechayayin shamru, the poles of which the rabbis spoke. And the Rab says the reason the Mishnah says the plural of poles is because it refers to the machloket in Mishnah 2, where Rabbi Eliezer requires 2 poles and Bet Hillel suffice with 1. Govhan asarat tvachim, their height must be at least 10 tvachim. Ve'ochban ve'ovyan kolshu, while their width and thickness can be anything. Meaning, the commentators explain, since the walls of the alley must be at least 10 tvachim high, the poles must have that height as well. But there's no minimum requirement for their width or thickness. And the Rab explains it does not have the halachic status of an alleyway if its walls are lower than 10 tefachim, but the pole therefore must also be at least 10 tefachim high. However, the height suffices for the pole, even if the walls are, that height suffices for the pole 10 tefachim high, even if the walls are higher. Now, like we said, there's no minimum requirement for their width or thickness. Rabbi Yossi Omer, wherever Rabbi Yossi says, Rochban shoshat tvachim, their width must be at least 3 tvachim, because otherwise they would not be significant. And the Rabbi explains, according to Rabbi Yossi, the pole is meant to signify a partition that runs across the entrance of the alley. It cannot serve this purpose unless it is at least 3 tvachim wide. And the Rab says, Ven l'alachak Rabbi Yossi, the halacha does not follow Rabbi Yossi. That is in Rabotai today's Mishna Yomi. Everybody should have a Shavua Tov. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen.